Okay, so we'll continue from where we left off last week. We began the series on Kohelet, a very important book that was written by Salomon Melech, the wisdom of life, how much chokhmah there is, how much knowledge there is. Unfortunately, in our short life, we don't even get it to taste even the drop in the bucket, as they say in English, tipa min hayam, of what there is to learn. Nonetheless, this is a good summary, just like Sefer Mishlei in some ways, of many valuable tips. And if we learn these valuable tips, we will avoid many pitfalls and the many mistakes that other people have made. And who doesn't want to avoid mistakes? The problem is not everybody is convinced, or not everybody is so sure that something that he's about to do is the wrong thing. And that's why it pays to learn. We left off in the pasuk that deals with things that appear to be new, but they're totally not new. As we said before, en hadash tachat hashamesh, there's nothing new under the sun. Whatever was will be. However, Shlomo Melech says, yesh davar sheyomar re'eh ze chadash. Here, look, there's something new. A new situation, a new problem, a discovery of something. Hu kvar haya le'olamim. Just you should know that all of that already existed. Asher haya melefanenu. What the problem is en zichron larishonim. People do not recall the past. V'gam la'achronim sheyu lo yeh lehem zikaron. And those that come later on will also not remember. In other words, neither will we remember those who were before us, neither will people in the future remember us, neither do we remember the past, neither what is now will be remembered in the future. So, en zichron larishonim v'gam la'achronim sheyu lo yeh lehem zikaron im sheyu la'achronim, even those that will be at the very end of days. So I'm going to explain what these two pesukim are talking about. He's not only talking about necessarily inventions meaning that we think that this is something new, it's new technology. As we explained last week, all it is a discovery of something that always existed. The potential was always there. People just did not realize how to make a light bulb 100, 200 years ago. It always existed. The material, the knowledge even somehow was, but putting the material and the knowledge together was only something that came about recently. So that we already discussed in the past, that this is not really completely new. But here he's talking also about something else. There's a lot of information that has been lost. A lot of knowledge that was once known that was completely lost. People are still amazed today at all the pyramids that were built, not only in Egypt, by the way. For those of you who did not know, there are pyramids also in Guatemala and in Mexico. Right? There are incredible structures in South America as well, all over the world, that scientists, archaeologists are amazed. They're just simply amazed. They don't know how these people, supposedly primitive people, Indians, were able to put together these things. This requires tremendous science, tremendous knowledge. And where did they take it from? Did they know this in the past? So obviously it's more likely than not that a lot of knowledge existed in the past, and what happened to it? It simply disappeared. It was simply forgotten. The same is true about Am Yisrael. Shlomo Melech is also talking about the Jewish nation. The Jewish nation has gone through various stages in the history of mankind, ups and downs as we would call them. There have been more than one Holocaust. People just recall the more recent one. There are pictures and even movies about it. But you know that there has been other Holocausts, the destruction of the first temple, the destruction of the second temple, the many pogroms and persecutions. What about the Inquisition? People have forgotten about that because there are no pictures. It's been so long, several hundred years ago. You know how brutal that was? You know how tragic that was? The impact it had on the Jewish people, we don't realize the impact because it's so long ago, so it's forgotten. So when we see something new, oh, why don't they like us? All of a sudden, anti-Semitism is a big question. People are trying to figure it out. This question was asked before too. This problem has existed in the past too. There's nothing new. They hate us today, guess what? They hated us yesterday too. They went after us yesterday too. Throughout the history, especially during the Galut, there's no doubt that the Goyim were not very happy with us. There was always different reasons. There were always all kinds of excuses. But hatred was always there. Problems always existed. And the Jews suffered. So the Jewish suffering is nothing new. But to some people who are born today, who grow up today, who are used to supposedly a modern civilized world, they don't understand. Why doesn't just Israel give up the territories and they'll have peace? They think that's the solution. They think you put a Band-Aid and the disease is gone. They don't realize that this is a deeper disease. It has nothing to do with what we see on the surface. This is an old problem. Really? What's the old problem? Were there Arabs 2,000 years ago? What? No. Bedouins maybe, right? But there were problems there too with other nations. Now they claim the problem is because Israel is taking over the land, displacing the refugees. Well, what happened in 1929, the massacre in Hebron? It was under British rule. Were we taking anybody's property? Did we displace anybody? Right? There were so few of us. So that's all an excuse. So we see, if you pay attention, it doesn't make sense that that's the reason. Then what was the reason 200 years ago? Something else. No matter where we were, what we did, rich or poor, successful or not, they always blamed us for all the problems in the world. Now somebody's blaming all the revolutions right now in the Arab countries on Israel. There's even somebody saying there's somebody sitting in Tel Aviv and causing all of this. And they believe it. This is not a lie. They actually, some of them really believe in this crazy idea. Something is in their mind, in their head. It's the Jews' fault for everything. Something happens in North Korea, it must be also because of the Jews. And you know what? They're right. Why are they right? Because everything that happens in the world has something to do with the Jewish people. But people who are not connected to Judaism are really going to be puzzled. They're really not going to understand. Just give it back to them. Give it back to them what? Our small little piece of land that is only as big as New Jersey? That's all it is. The Arabs have so many lands. And what do they want, that small piece of land? What do they care? Just a small, it's just a dot. You barely see it on the globe. Does that make sense? It doesn't. It shouldn't. It's not normal. It's not natural. We're not going by the rules of nature here. This is something Mishamayim, of course. But who's going to say that? One who knows a little bit about the Torah, where it is written, why these things happen. So for some people, there's a lot of things, oh, this is new, what's going on? That's what's going on. You don't know what's going on. You think this is a big issue. You think this is something that is incomprehensible. That's because you did not learn. In the Torah, it says why certain things happen. And had you learned Pashat Bechukotai, Pashat Kitavo, Pashat Nitzavim, you will understand a little bit of why terrible things have happened to the Jewish people in the past. It just doesn't happen by itself. And the reason is not what many people think it is. It's something to do with Shamayim. So therefore, don't think you can put a Band-Aid on it and just resolve it and fix it and it will disappear. There's obviously a deeper problem. So even something like the fate of Am Yisrael, the Goral of Am Yisrael, is nothing new. The real problem is Kesaron Yediyah. In other words, Borut, ignorance, lack of knowledge. People do not look into the past and try to figure out, wait a minute, maybe there is a connection between the past and the present, right? There is a famous saying, and it comes in various variants, the saying, so I'm going to give you each one of them. One of them goes as follows: those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. You heard something like that? Mm-hmm. Another variant of that: those who cannot learn from history are doomed to repeat it. If you don't understand the words, just ask. Those who fail to learn from the mistakes of their predecessors are destined to repeat them. Sounds familiar? Yeah. There's another saying which is a little bit different, and that is the past holds the key to the future. Have you heard of that one? Mm-hmm. Now this expression, the past holds the key to the future, is used in various ways. It's also used to connote what we just said, that look at the past, history repeats itself. and understand that there is a connection between the past and the present. It is very important to learn about the past, otherwise the mistakes, the problems that occurred in the past are definitely going to happen again. We need to know how to deal with it. Some have used, however, this last particular expression, the past holds the key to the future, in a geological way. Geology, as you know, part of geology learns the history, or attempts to learn the history of the earth, the various layers of the earth. There's different departments in geology. There are some that are more involved in petroleum, mineralogy, trying to figure out where to drill for oil. But there is a geology that is more historical in nature, in trying to figure out periods in the history of mankind, in the history of animals, in the history of the planet that we live in. When dinosaurs existed, what happened to them, why did they disappear? They try, they don't know for sure, but they have some clues. And they wanted to use this expression to their benefit by saying that the past holds the key to the future. In other words, if you want to know what's going to happen in the future in an evolutionary way, in a geological way, just look at the past. And the past shows various trends of weather patterns, and conditions of soil and everything like that. And based on that, you can predict the future. You can predict what will happen, because what happened in the past will happen in the future. And they want to use that, of course, to tell us that it must be that once upon a time, this is what the earth looked like. And in some ways, they are right. Once upon a time, this area of Los Angeles was more tropical. That could be. We do know that some mountains were covered by water. We do know that the atmosphere was different before the Mabul. The weather, the climate, there was not that much ice. Climate does change because of all kinds of reasons. But they're not completely right. This expression is not an accurate expression 100% because they don't take into consideration something like the Mabul. Once you introduce a big Mabul, a big flood to the world, it contaminates the evidence. It throws everything off. And you therefore do not have a consistent, continuous condition of the earth from day one till now. Once you have what they call in English cataclysmic events, major catastrophes of all kinds, it throws things off. You have lava from volcanoes, you have tsunamis, right? You have all kinds of disasters, what they call cataclysmic events, meteors coming down. That can change everything. Who knows what it did? Look what happened to ever go to Yam HaMelach, to the Dead Sea. You think it was always a dead sea, salty sea? Hashem has nothing to do but to create a body of water that is salty with no life in it. Yam HaMelach, by the way, is called a Dead Sea because nothing basically lives in it. And it's very, very salty. How did it become like that? It became like that because of the story of Sdom ve'Amorah. The Torah records what happens in that area. That happened to be a very fertile area. And if you want to see how fertile it is, there are some pockets still that are very, very green, like En Gedi, where you can see that this was a very nice place. In the midst of a very, very harsh desert type of area, you have some pockets. What happened? Hashem overturned it. And that is why there's so much sulfur and salt, and that's why it looks the way it does. But you cannot know from that, unless you read the Torah, how it happened, or if it will happen again. Scientists say, "Oh, that's natural." There are places that have more minerals than others. They don't really know. So you cannot always predict. You cannot always tell, what will be geologically, but you can tell about other things. The Torah tells us, if you do this, this is what will happen. If you don't do this, this is what will happen. Because the Torah wants to continuously remind the Jews, Sheshna Hashgacha Elyona, that there's a mashgiach, there's a guy, not a guy, there's a Kadosh Baruch Hu who's in charge, who's managing this world, and things don't happen by themselves. Yesh Seder, there's a particular order, And in the same way that there's a certain order and things are managed from above for certain reasons, history is also taking a certain course. We're headed somewhere. People don't think we're headed somewhere. Oh, one of these days the sun is going to finish. That's what some people claim. They're concerned that the sun is going to finish. The sun, you know, the power, it's a big generator. And they think it's just like all other generators. You run out of fuel. It will be like a star that fizzes and self-destructs. Oh, don't worry about it, they tell you, the scientists. It's going to be another couple million years. You won't be around. Their thinking is flawed because they're looking at things naturally. But once you introduce a mashgiach, there's a boss, there's one who manages everything, then you are reminded that there is a tachlit, there's a purpose. And as long as that purpose is there, everything that Hashem created in the world to serve that purpose will be there, will be necessary. The sun is not going to disappear. We need a sun. It serves the purpose. There will always be human beings. Yeah, there will always be whatever we need to survive. There will always be oxygen. Right? Whatever is necessary for the kiyum, for the survival of the world, for the ultimate tachlit, will always be there. But people, of course, who don't learn, who have no connection to the Torah, that's what they're going to think. So he says, En zichron rishonim. The previous generation obviously did not teach us, did not impart on us all the information. Somehow there was a gap in the transmission of information from the past to the present. And therefore, we may not know everything they knew. We may have forgotten a lot of things that existed in the past. But that's not the only idea. A very important concept that Shlomo Melech is telling us is that a lot of what already happened, a lot of what already took place, a lot of the important people that once lived in this world are completely forgotten and gone. Does somebody remember what he ate yesterday here? We may somewhat recall yesterday, but what about a week ago? On a particular day, if I ask you, remember 2 weeks ago on a Tuesday night? You know, it's gone. Put it into your stomach, it's forgotten. And what's interesting about it is that at the very moment you may actually have been excited to eat it. It may have been your best food. Right? And, you know, it's just, over time, you don't think about these things. Why? Because, you know, it's not that important that you're going to write it down, that you're going to remember it. It's just not that important that it needs to be recorded. So many, many things are just forgotten because they don't have that much importance. A lot of the people, the big shots of the past, they were big shots. Do we remember them? Can anybody tell me how many are going to remember 100 years from now who Michael Jackson was? And just to take an example. Today, not everybody really knows about him, but the world, a lot of people have become somewhat informed because of music, because of radio, because of TV, whatever people watch and whatever people see in the street through billboards. I mean, people have become somewhat familiar with that name. And guess what? All of a sudden, at the prime of his life, well, like a candle, extinguished. Well, even if he would have lived a normal life, another 20, 30 years or whatever, and after that, extinguished. Candle that blows out. Who is going to remember him 100 years from now? Who cares? Shlomo Melech in Kohelet is going to, I don't want to say that he makes fun, but he does in some ways. He's trying to knock into our brains some very important ideas that don't think that all of these big shots and all of these accomplishments are so great. They will be forgotten too. Don't be therefore misled by these things. Don't think that this is the ikar. Don't waste your time and effort on these things. And one of them, of course, is money. All of this is forgotten. Who cares about these things? They will all be gone sooner or later. But what is the reality? What is the reality behind all the things that are happening and that we are seeing and experiencing? The real reality behind all these things is only one. And that all of these things that we see or experience are called pratim. They're called details. Details that in the end turn out to be causes of an ultimate tachlit. They all lead to something. In other words, Hashem puts an individual here. He makes something happen here. These are details, and they are causes, like pegs in a big machine, that ultimately they produce something. Right now, what is happening in the Middle East now, what it should bring to our attention is, wait a minute, not too long ago, there was something very similar. Does anybody here in this room remember what happened not too long ago that was very, very similar on the world stage to what is happening right now in the Middle East? When I talk about the Middle East, I'm talking about the revolt of the people, the bringing down the tyrant. Come on, let's see. Who remembers? Huh? Where?
Persia.
No, that's one isolated thing.
Yeah.
Right? And that was actually the other way around. That's an example of the other extreme, of going from something relatively good, correct me if I'm wrong, to something which is fanatic.
Yeah, it was supposed to be a revolution, but...
Some people, I think, prefer the life under the Shah,
Yeah.
right? I think the majority of the people in Iran preferred the life then, even though it wasn't necessarily the best either for other reasons. You know, there are some benefits to having a religious country. I mean, you don't have all the contamination of the West. I mean, you know, I'm not a Hasid of Khomeini, right? For sure not of Khomeini, of the other guy, right, today. But he did make the Jews close their shops on Shabbat, I heard. He did, you know, all kinds of things, right? He did, you know, not to allow pornography in the open. I mean, we don't discount it completely. But obviously, it has other problems. They're not perfect. What can we do? But I'm talking about something else. Come on, what happened?
The fall of Soviet Union.
Yes, exactly. Don't you remember 1989? It was just like yesterday, 1990. The fall of Russia. That was, nobody even dreamt of that. Am I not right? If we would be talking about right now, Khrushchev isn't, not Khrushchev, let's forget about Khrushchev. Let's talk about Brezhnev. Khrushchev is a little harder to remember for most of you. For me, for sure. Brezhnev, totally in control. The Cold War between America and Russia, everybody was thinking about there could be nuclear war any moment. I remember I was in NORAD in Colorado, a very secret, we had a tour of a secret
bunker.
What? Underground, in the mountain. A secret place where people, you know, keep track of missiles all the time. Planes will take off as soon as they get notice. There's a button that the president can press. There was a little bit of fear that this can happen. And people were preparing. Maybe that's what Gog and Magog is. They were saying Russia is Gog. Anybody saying Russia is Gog today? Not really.
Not really.
It broke up in pieces. It came closer to the West, supposedly. They could still go back, but, right? But what happened then? They fell apart. The Berlin Wall subsequently fell apart. But not only that, all the communist countries, remember Ceausescu in Romania? Boom.
All the communist bloc.
All the communist bloc. So that was like a domino effect, affecting all those countries there. Boom, everything changes. The Baltic countries, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, all of a sudden became free again. They can use their language, their culture. There was a big, big change. And you know what this affected? The people who write maps had to redraw maps. They had to redraw the maps. Now there's a new country here. And now they're still redrawing the maps now recently from Yugoslavia. There's no more Yugoslavia. Now you have Slovenia, you have Serbia, Croatia, Bosnia, Kosovo. Oh, breaking up this Yugoslavia. Does anybody remember Tito? Who remembers Tito? Right? But back then, you would know, right? But it's all forgotten. Let's go to Turkey. Anybody here know who Ataturk was? Maybe from Iran you would know a little bit.
Yeah.
Huh? Ataturk. You know what he did? What was so special about him?
Change the language to write in
Change the alphabet. Turkish used to be written in the Arab script. right? You have a lot of languages, that's quite a few that use the Arabic script with some changes because of sounds that don't exist in their language, like in Farsi and in Hindi and in Pashto, where they, not Hindi really, it's really Urdu that uses the Arabic script, but but Turkey's changed it. But you ask the average guy outside the street, you know who Ataturk was? Unless you're Turkish or maybe who cares? He happened to be someone that was well liked, someone that did something for Turkey. But again, all these things are forgotten, even though they may have been accomplishments. And they're recorded in the history books because today we have a printing press that records things. Could you imagine all those things that were not recorded that we don't know of? So much happened that we don't know. So all of these, what they have in common that's important for us to know is not who these people were, how great they were. It's forgotten. All of these things in the end are causes for an ultimate tachlit. Hashem has a tachlit. Not everybody is aware of that purpose, the design. And He has people and events that take place that are necessary to produce that tachlit eventually. There may be a tachlit at one point, but there is a bigger tachlit, the redemption of Am Yisrael, the Geulah, the Tikkun of the world. So everything that is happening in the world, the various players, the big shots, the presidents, the leaders, and even the not the leaders, everybody is acting as a player, as a detail, and the importance of that detail is what? It is to bring about the Retzon HaEloki, the will of Hashem. That's all. That's the only importance of it. Okay, now that he gave us this little bit of an introduction of how we're forgetful, how we don't realize why things happen, he talks about himself. He begins to talk about himself, that he also made mistakes. He says, Ani Kohelet Aiti Melech al Israel Birushalayim. In this pasuk, he doesn't say what his mistakes were. But there's a lot of remazim here. The rabbis tell us what he's trying to say. I was a king in Yerushalayim, on the Jews. Why say Yerushalayim? Why not say I was a king on Israel, on the entire Israel? Mazi Yerushalayim, just on Yerushalayim. He begins to, of course, tell us what he learned, but in this pasuk, rabbis tell us, is insinuated the mistakes that Shlomo Melech made. Anybody know what mistakes he made? He was a smart man. You think smart people don't make mistakes? So Shlomo Melech says, I was smart and I still made a mistake. In the beginning, I was a king. I was a big king. And for a time, I lost my kingdom. The Midrash tells us an incredible story that the king of the demons threw him out, threw Shlomo Melech. There was a whole incident on how he was able. He captured him and he threw Shlomo Melech 400 parsa away. And he took his place. Nobody knew that Shlomo Melech was gone because Ashmedai, the king of the demons, gave himself the resemblance of Shlomo Melech. Gave himself the resemblance. And he was,
Look at his feet.
what?
You should have looked at
They
his
should have
feet.
looked at his feet, yeah. But he was wearing boots, maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway, this was going on for a little while. There's a whole story in the Midrash of how it happened, where he went. It didn't last too long. But he eventually lost his kingdom, and all he was king over is over his maklo, over his stick, because that's all he had. So from being a king on Israel, it came down to being a king in Yerushalayim, then losing it further and being just barely a king on his makil. And wherever he went, wherever he was, people didn't believe he was Shlomo Melech. He was telling him, I'm Shlomo Melech. You, Shlomo Melech, with a makil. Shlomo Melech is over there. Anyway, this was a lesson to him. He thought he was smart, but he made 3 mistakes. He went against 3 prohibitions in the Torah, Shlosha Lavim, not to marry too many women, not to have too much horses, not to pursue too much gold and silver. Even though his request from Hashem was for Chokhmah, which was a good request, for wisdom, he on his own felt, for reasons of his own, that this was okay for him to do. Even though the Torah says it's not good, it's not right, he had the attitude, as we say in Hebrew, Li ze lo yikre. To me, what the Torah says may happen to a regular human being if he does these things. It won't happen to me. Some people have this callous attitude. Ze lo yikre. it's not going to happen to me. It happened to him. This can't happen to me. I'm going to be careful.
Isn't that eventually happened to all the kings in the world?
What happens?
They had a lot of gold and they had a lot of women and they all fell at the end.
No, they're not. They did not all fall, but people who.
Well, not even kings. Let's see.
But people who.
Mubarak.
Well, obviously, yeah, we're going to talk
you know
about
how
that.
many billions he had.
Yeah. It
He
all
lost
falls.
everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Sure, it happens to them. You sometimes wonder, why do they need all this? They can't ever.
Thing.
They can't ever finish it. Not even their grandchildren are ever going to finish all this money. You know, poor people. You know, the citizens of these countries, they barely have anything. $2 a day. You know, they make whatever,
Yeah,
a week,
$2 a
I don't
day,
know,
yeah.
or a week, I don't know what it is. But anyway, look at these tyrants. But anyway, so Shlomo Melech made the mistake of not following the Torah in these three areas, thinking that it's not going to affect him. And of course, the Torah says it will affect you, and it proved itself that it affected him too. So he was punished. This was a part of a punishment, and the punishment from Hashem had one thing in mind, to humble him. Because that's what sometimes people are lacking, humbleness. Because if people would be humble, they would realize that they don't know everything, that they have a lot of things to learn, that they can easily make mistakes. And that's therefore very important characteristic, very important midah. There was a story that is brought down somewhere of an individual who was a very popular guy in his place, in his town. He was a leader, and he was extremely wealthy. So he was a very influential person. He had a lot of say. He lost all his wealth. As we say in Hebrew, itapech alav galgalo. The wheel of fortune turned around for him, and he lost everything. And he went from village to village, from town to town, you know, in his rags. Nobody knew who he was. And in one town he arrived and he made an announcement that people should come to shul because the big mochiach of this town is here. The big mochiach means the big preacher who's going to teach them is here. People thought, you know, people used to go from town to talk because they need money. So maybe he figured he could do that too. People came from Mincha, and they thought he was going to speak between Mincha and Arvit. He didn't get up to speak. All right, they figured maybe he's going to speak after Arvit. They all came to hear him, the big mochiach, the big preacher. He's going to tell us something. After Arvit, he doesn't get up to speak, so they went over to him. You said you were going to speak. So he says, I'll tell you the truth. I'm not a very learned person. I really have no Torah. I'm not very knowledgeable. All I really wanted to say is that I want you to see what I experienced and what I went through. How I was once rich and how I lost everything. And from that you should learn the biggest tochacha of all. In other words, my experience, my life experience should be for you the mochiach. That if you have it, all this wealth, you could lose it too. As they say in English, money comes and money goes. So don't be so proud. Don't be so confident. Don't rely on all this wealth because in the same way you may have made it easily, it can go away easily. So the point that is brought out over here by Shlomo Melech is that man does not really control life. One man does not really control almost anything. He barely controls himself. But what are the Chinese trying to do? Anybody know what the Chinese are trying to do lately? Besides copying everything? They're trying to control the weather. Did you hear about that one? There's something in weather called seeding the clouds. Seeding the clouds is not something that is completely proven. But it may work sometimes when they try to stimulate or to bring about rain through a certain process called seeding of the clouds. That the planes go and they see the clouds with something.
Something to do with silver.
With what?
Something to do with silver.
Yeah. So anyway, maybe it works a little bit. And they, of course, what were they trying to do? They wanted to make sure when they have this big show in Beijing that there's no snow. They wanted to control that there shouldn't be snow, there shouldn't be rain. And of course, they failed. You cannot control weather. And sometimes you try to do something, it becomes even worse. You know, you're going to see the clouds, you're going to bring maybe too much rain and floods. Man has to realize that he cannot control nature. He barely controls himself. We are barely shalitim on ourselves. How we can expect to be shalitim, rulers, controllers over the world, right? So the Chachamim therefore gave us a very important beracha to remind us of that. Which beracha? Asher yatzar et ha'adam. You come out of the bathroom, there's such a very beautiful and powerful blessing to make. And this blessing basically says, if God Chas v'Shalom would close up something that has to be open, or would open up an organ that has to be closed, we would not be able to survive even for one moment. Mm-hmm. And when we say these words with the proper kavanah, obviously, it's supposed to remind us who we are and how we're so dependent on Hashem. And we have to awaken ourselves to this incredible hashgacha that is over us at all times. And on top of this awareness, we're supposed to be thankful and grateful for everything that He has given us. Not to complain, not to be negative, not to be depressed. On the contrary, be thankful about what there is to be thankful. There's a lot to be thankful about. Okay, let's go on. So Shlomo Melech explained his mistakes and how he lost the kingdom temporarily. Then he goes on to say what was one of his missions in life. ונתתי את ליבי לדרוש ולתור בחוכמה על כל אשר נעשה תחת השמיים. I took it upon myself to examine, through chokhmah, through wisdom, everything, all events, all activities that happen under the sun, under the heavens. And I realized, hu inyan ra, there's so much bad going on. Natan Elohim livnei adam la'anot bo. And this ra, Hashem allowed people to stumble on it. Okay, so we need to explain what is he talking about. He says he has examined everything. He began to examine the pros and cons of everything. He wanted to know what's important and what's not important, what is good and what is bad, what is desirable and what is not, right? And then he realized that there's a lot of bad going on. He's not explained to us yet what all the bad is. He will. That's what the book is all about. The Sefer Kohelet will be about the results. He has a report. And this is what I found. Okay? Now he's telling us how he's going about it. He's going to use Chokhmah. He's going to be an observer. As we said last week, he's going to observe and not be a player. A person who's a player does not see the whole game. If you observe, if you're the coach, if you're from the outside, you're able to observe. Tamashkif. You're able to observe and see a lot more. So he's now telling this through Chokhmah as an observer. He says there's so much bad. And when he says bad, he doesn't mean evil. He didn't say to use the word evil. He used bad. Bad, like in Farsi, bad, right? It means something wrong, something no good is going on. And people are allowed, somehow Hashem allows them to stumble on this. And he says, what's going on over here? But that's what he's finding out. So he begins to tell us like this. In discovering what's going on in this world and in distinguishing between right and wrong, good and bad, I now understand, again, this is basically what he's telling us in other words. I now understand what the Torah meant. A very important pasuk in Sefer Devarim that Moshe Rabbeinu tells Am Yisrael, listen, you heard a lot of Torah mitzvot from me, you've gotten direction, but let's summarize it. You know what it all boils down to? Life. I've given you basically two choices, Hashem says. I've given you life or death. I've given you the good or the bad. We have a choice. We have free will in certain areas. And I'm advising you, v'charta b'chaim. I'm advising you to choose life, to choose the right things. And of course, if you follow the Torah, you will be on the right path of doing the right things. So Shlomo Melech is basically talking about that concept of good and bad, life and death that the Torah had in mind, that we should examine, that we should realize what we're facing, what the choices are. And he's telling us that, you know what, in the same way I was able to distinguish with a little bit of thought, using my mind, the knowledge, the chokhmah, by observing, you can also. If you put your mind to work, if you stop to think, you will be able to distinguish, and you need to distinguish between right and wrong. And as far as the wrong things, the ra that people are stumbling on, why are people stumbling on things? Hashem wants them to be humbled. A lot of people have fallen because Hashem wants to teach them a lesson, to humble them. You're not such a big guy as you think you are. You think you have the money, now you can do whatever you want. I can take that away from you. You think you're going to last forever? I can put you to bed very quickly like that. People don't realize. In Hebrew, there is a description of a certain illness. I don't know the English translation for it. It's called dom lev. In Hebrew, dom lev means the heart's just stopped.
It's a heart attack.
Not exactly, no. The heart can stop for all kinds of reasons. A dom lev, as opposed to a tkef lev, which is a heart attack, all it means is the heart ceased to work. No explanation given. Dom lev means he died because the heart stopped. The pump was working.
Happens to young people.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what?
Heart failure. It's just heart failure.
Heart failure. You know, it's an electrical pump in a sense. The heart. The pump stopped. Pump stopped working. It's Baruch Hashem. That by us it's working, and it continues for many, many years. B'ezrat Hashem. But it could stop. Boom. What is that? Heart stops. No oxygen, right? No blood circulation. You're gone in a short while. So Hashem allows people to go ahead sometimes and make the mistakes that they don't realize they're making, in order to humble them, to realize that, you know, you're not such a big guy after all. Okay, since unfortunately many people are making the wrong decisions and are doing and are making all sorts of mistakes, it is important, I think, at this point to just briefly touch on the point of divorces. I assure you, even though I'm not the greatest expert in this field, that the majority of divorces, statistically, are not necessary. Divorce is a last resort. It's supposed to be. It's sometimes necessary, unfortunately, but it's the exception. It's out of a million marriages, you can expect maybe a couple to be divorced. Possibly all kinds of things can happen. The Torah says that you can get divorced. There is a get document for those situations that need a divorce. But lately, I'm not talking about the non-Jewish world. I'm talking about the Jewish world, unfortunately. There's an incredible amount of divorces. There is a magefa, as we say. What's the word for magefa? A tremendous... Not exactly, even though it means plague. Even though it means plague, there's another word to describe an incredible amount or a flood of divorces that didn't even last long. After even less than a year, a couple of months. You know, guys live 15 years with each other, and now after 15 years, I can't take it anymore. All right. You know, okay. Or she can't take it anymore, or something is really, really getting out of hand. All right. Even then, it's not necessarily the right thing to do. But just like that, you know, a couple of months, a couple of weeks, what happened? You know what happened? There's something wrong. There's something rotten. There's something bad going on. This is not healthy. This is not right. This can't be right. This is not what it's meant to be. And therefore, this is an indication, the many, many divorces is an indication that something is not working right. That people do not have a good sense of direction. Rabbis tell us that the word sheker, en lo raglaim. Have you heard that one? A sheker en lo raglaim. A lie does not have legs. The shin, the kuf, and the resh, they don't have on what to stand. It's not like the letter taf that has two legs, right? The shin on the point, the kuf on one leg, the resh on one leg. Sheker and lo raglaim. Therefore, the rabbis say, anything which is a lie, a farce, will not last. It cannot last. It has no feet to stand. It may have worked. You know, Obama may have fooled some people, right? But it will not last.
But you cannot fool all the people.
What is that?
You cannot fool all the people.
You cannot fool all the people, right? Mm-hmm. Nevertheless, it will not last. if that's the case, any marriage or any relationship that is based on something false, something not right, something not real, will not last either. It's impossible. In other words, if the premises are wrong, the foundation upon which it's being built is not really the real reasons for marriage, it cannot last. Of course it cannot last. The true purpose of marriage in Jewish tradition is to build a home together in partnership with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of course, to bring about the next generation, to transmit to them the tradition, to bring about a relationship which is very strong, where the two feel they need each other, where the two feel they're equal partners with the same desire and same priorities and same outlook of building something together, of having a future together, of becoming one single body, which of course, in order for this to succeed, includes, but is not limited to, mutual respect and love and kindness, of course. All of these things that we hear about, but we don't really see, unfortunately, because people are selfish. People don't think about these things. People do not always have the ability to give of themselves if they're selfish. If a person is selfish, you think he can share? He's selfish. So how is he going to share? How is he going to be giving? It's going to be a problem. He's not going to succeed so easily, not in friendships and not in any relationship. So obviously something is wrong. What is one of those things that is wrong? The emphasis on passion. People are in love sometimes, and it's not a true love, it's a passion. It's a physical connection. And that physical connection is something not to go by. Why? Can anybody tell me why shouldn't you go by physical attraction? You're entitled to, and by the way, it's healthy and it's good, and there should be some physical attraction. And passion, there should always be some passion. But why isn't that something to rely on? Or
Because
to
passion fades.
That's
There
right.
should be something else to
Right.
hold you
Passion, guaranteed. Again, I will sign my name to it, will fade. Disappear, not completely. I hope not. There always needs to be some passion. There always has to be some degree of interest in the other, on a physical sense. But it will not be the same as it was in the very beginning. It fades. What does Shlomo Melech tell us about Sheker HaChen veHevel HaYofi? Chen, which means grace, sympathy. Some people, women, men, have that chen. It's a matanam elokim, there's no doubt about it. It's a beautiful thing to have. People like the individual because of his grace. He's just nice looking, presentable. But it's sheker. It can mislead you. Even though the chen is there, that's not something to judge a person by. Right? Don't judge a book by its cover. So chen is nice, but it's sheker. It could mislead you. What about beauty? Beauty is not sheker, but it's hevel.
Hevel HaYofi.
Hevel HaYofi. We're talking about hevel avalim now. We're talking about the vanities. We're talking about the things that are really worthless, almost. Or as they say in English, hot air. One of them is hevel. And one of them is yofi. And this yofi, this beauty, also doesn't last long. But even if it does, Shlomo Melech doesn't call it sheker, he calls it hevel. Why? Because he says beauty by itself is worthless, it's hevel. You want to marry a beautiful person who's empty inside? She's going to sit at home, look at the walls. Not intelligent. She's beautiful. She can even be Miss Universe. Right? So what? But it's nothing else. She's lazy. She's spoiled. All kinds of problems maybe. So what does the beauty help you? So beauty by itself is worthless. It's heaven. Obviously, if a person has good character, good nature, and they're beautiful physically, that's very nice. Why not? He's not against that. The Torah is not against that. On the contrary, it's something very, very special, something very good. But that should not be priority number one. That should not be definitely on the list. Without that, forget it. I don't want her. She has, a little bit of the, a wrinkle in here, or she's just a little bit overweight, and because of that, I don't want to, There are some people who are very picky. Shtuyot, it's nonsense. Yeah, look at everything else, not at that. That's all hevel. In comparison, at least, to the more important thing of what? Yirat Hashem, Yishayirat Hashem, Mitit Allah. She's a God-fearing person. So therefore you get the sense of where people are. If they value these things, and that's all they value, they don't value anything else, that's why things go kaput. They fall apart. You know how many marriages fall apart because of money? Oh, he doesn't have enough money, or he doesn't make enough money, or the father-in-law is not giving enough money, or as in some communities they say, they look at the future son-in-law, all you are is a dentist? Yeah, I don't know. What car do you drive? You know, that's ridiculous. That's all you know? You know? Anyway, people have different concepts. But this is all wrong. This is bad. This is not the right thing. This is not the right, but people have the wrong values, or they have the wrong value system. You know, it's gonna, it can fall apart. It's not a game. Don't get me wrong. There are some marriages that are, you know, people are not necessarily the most knowledgeable. They don't know everything, but Baruch Hashem, they have a beracha, and it lasts. That's because they have good character. They're good-natured
Mostly
people.
they have same values.
Similar values, but they also are decent people. They're both poor. They're both normal. And they, Baruch Hashem, don't have crazy ideas. You know, one of them is Kurdi, right? And he's, you know, they usually are not very, very, you know, into money or certain things. They're very, very straight, black and white, no nonsense, right? And the other one also, you know, comes from a very simple family, simple background, no great aspirations of, you know, who knows what, you know. And because of that, Baruch Hashem, it lasts. But when you introduce materialism, when you introduce all kinds of wrong ideas, that can really spoil the situation. Imagine somebody who's very, very close to his mother. And the wife doesn't like that. How many women get along with their mother-in-laws? Right? It could be a big issue. Wait a minute, sir. You married the girl. She is now more important than your own mother. Did you know that? Mapito, whoever told you something like that? My mother is my mother. That's not what the Torah says. No, the Torah says, once you get married, v'davak beishto, azav et aviv et imo, you let go your parents. Let go does not mean you abandon them. Chaz v'shalom, kabet avicha betimecha, honoring them is even after they pass away. But who is going to be the center of the affections? Husband and wife, number one. Who's center of affection, number two? The kids. Who's number three? The parents. But some people make their parents number one. That's very nice of you, but you're going to destroy your marriage, possibly. Unless your wife loves your parents too, then you may be lucky. But that's not normal, and that's not the right thing. You focus on your marriage. That's number one. So priorities. People don't have the right priorities. Now, why are people making so many mistakes? This world, we explained in the past, is a very complex world. Really, it's very complex. There's a lot going on. There's so much to see, so much to learn. And it's very difficult to know everything, and people therefore make mistakes. What are we supposed to do to avoid these mistakes? I'm sure all of you here from time to time buy something that is complex. It could be a computer, it could be a car, it could be anything that is complex piece of engineering. And what does it come with? It comes with a manual of instructions. Even your dishwasher, which is simple, relatively simple, has buttons. Right? Refrigerators, some of them have more buttons than others. You want to use it right? You want it to last? You better read the manual. If you don't read the manual, there's a good chance you're going to make mistakes. There's a good chance you won't understand what the sound is. And you're going to be calling somebody for every little thing. Doesn't make sense either. You're going to be on the phone all the time, right? That's what is a manual for? I know some manuals are written in Taiwanese and not in regular English. I know sometimes it's hard to figure out the English. But most manuals have basic instructions. And they also have instructions that are, some of them, for the electricians, that they need to know, those who install the product. That's a separate part of the manual or a separate manual altogether. Those that come to repair need to know how to repair it, what part they need to replace. You need a manual of instructions. You can't expect everybody to know how this operates. They didn't build it. How many people do you think read manuals?
Very few.
Very, very few. You know, they just they open up the box. They're so happy. They got a new video, a new machine, a new toaster. The manual was there too, in the garbage. Oh, it's okay. I can figure it out.
Yeah, but most of the manuals, the explanations are not very good.
Yeah. You don't throw out your manual. You need a manual. You need to know, all kinds of things. I'll give you a quick example. With a freezer or refrigerator. Does that besides you, do you know in this room at what temperature your food should be in the refrigerator? What's the right temperature for your refrigerator? You have a dial.
45.
You have a dial. And the dial is off. And the guy left and he never set the dial. Now you got to set the dial. It's a refrigerator, right? What does a refrigerator do? It cools food, maintains cool food, it maintains it fresh. Now you don't want to freeze your food, right? It's a refrigerator, it's not a freezer. And you don't want things to be hot. So what's the temperature? Most people do not know the answer to this question. And what is the temperature? It can't be under 30.
37.
Why can't it be under 30?
Freeze.
Oh, most people know that under 30 it will freeze, right? And you know that if it's over 45, it may spoil, depending on the food, some sooner than later, and some later. A good temperature is approximately 40 degrees, no?
40, 42, yeah.
40, 42, that's a good temperature for a refrigerator. And you have some maybe cabinets that need to be a little bit colder to control the humidity of the fruits and vegetables. These are helpful things too. The food may last longer if you know how to use them. And what happens to a freezer? If you don't know these things, all of a sudden your ice maker stops. And you wonder, why? What happened? Now be careful, if your ice maker stops, don't get on the phone right away. I'm talking about the automatic ice makers. Why? Because it's going to cost you $150. It's many of these calls. I'm not taking away business, right? Don't call right away. Why? Because it may be something very simple. You know why an ice maker sometimes does not work? Not because there's something mechanically wrong with it. It's simply, it's not cold enough in the freezer to produce ice. That's all it is. And if it's not cold enough, the machine cannot produce ice. So it's a good idea to have one of those, what is it called? Thermometer, whatever. Yeah, that's basically shows you the temperature. And for a freezer, it should be in the minus, in other words, it should be lower than 32. I think it should be around 0 to 10 at the most, or less than 0. What do you recommend for a freezer? Depends how cold you want the stuff. If it's meat, depending what it is. But it will not produce ice if it's too warm.
If you put it too cold, also it makes a lot of ice in the freezer.
Right. So you have to know these things. You don't read the manual. How are you going to know these things? This is basic stuff. We're not talking about complex things. So people don't read the manual. But anyway, I have something that I prefer more than a manual. My example is Disneyland. Have you been to Disneyland here? Anybody here not been to Disneyland? You've been to Disneyland? Have you ever been to Disneyland?
Yeah,
Yeah?
many years ago.
Yeah, but you've all been? Yeah. Did you visit Disneyland without a guide? I hope not, because you would not have known what to see. You only have so many hours unless you have a 2-day pass. There's so much to see. You want to see the more important things. You don't want to go to Alice in the Wonderland unless you're a small little baby, a child, right? You want to go to something nice that's worth the time, that's worth for an adult seeing. If you don't have a guide, not only won't you know it exists, you won't even know how to get there. It's a big place. We need a map. We need a guide. Otherwise, how are you going to get along in this world without that? Anybody here ever go on a trip to somewhere where he hasn't been without looking at the signs? If you don't look at the signs, you may take the 101 south instead of the 101 north. I mean, you can easily make a mistake. You have to look at the signs. Baruch Hashem, Southern California has a lot of off-ramps. You can always make a U-turn and go back if you make a mistake. But in New York, you're stuck for 25, 30 miles. In some roads, if you made a mistake...
If you made a mistake, let's say you have to turn right and you turn left, let's say in the Death Valley,
Right?
you got lost, that's it.
Really?
Yeah.
Death Valley, yeah. Yeah. There's some places where you have
Tells
to...
you from here to there to the next stop is 60 miles.
Oh, it does?
Yes.
Yeah, to the next stop, 60 miles.
The next, yeah.
What if you don't have any gas?
That's it.
Yeah.
That's what I tell you.
Make sure you fill your gas tank. Anyway,
Yeah.
you go to Israel, there are some spots in the Golan Heights and in the Galil. The big yellow sign, be careful, Sde Mokshim. You know what that is? It's a field of mines. You better not get in there. There's mines! And sometimes through big heavy rain, some of those mines float into the road. You have to be very careful, but you don't want to go hiking there. But if you're not going to read the sign, that's what's going to happen. Hopefully they're going to get rid of all those mines. You know, they don't really need, I don't think they really need them anymore. But anyway, signs are there for a purpose, but some people don't read the signs. And from time to time people get caught. They have to send an elevator to extricate it, to remove them from these fields. Because they're stuck. They all of a sudden realize, oh, don't move! Don't move.
Well, the animals blow them up every once in a while.
The animals, yes, yes, yeah. So anyway, in order for us to make the right decisions, in order for us to avoid mistakes, we have to learn. That's what it comes down to. Let's just finish with one more here, more pasuk here. He says like this. ראיתי את כל המעשים שנעשו תחת השמש והנה הכל הבל ורעות רוח. I saw all the things that happened in the world. I saw many activities that are under the sun. And I came to the conclusion that it's all a bunch of hevel, vanities, ur'ut ruach. Now this is a very interesting word. What's re'ut ruach? Re'ut ruach, I think loosely translated would mean it's all a source of aggravation. You know, it fills me with anguish. There's a lot of disappointments. Re'ut ruach. Re'ut ruach means a very negative feeling. In other words, a person goes through all kinds of ups and downs in life and he comes away from it feeling very, very bad. So that's what happens a lot in life. He says, a lot of life is all about disappointment. It's all about the re'ut ruach. It's all about aggravation. And why is that? So he says, because in the end I see people dealing with or engaged or involved with most of the time with havalim, with things that are not that important. And all of these havalim really don't lead anywhere. They're really empty. Re'ut ruach in Hebrew, we say is maleh ruach, or in Arabic, hawa. In other words, it's full of wind. It really is nothing. The wind takes it. In other words, it doesn't last. A lot of things that people put so much time and effort are really worthless. They don't last. And therefore, rabbis tell us we have to be thankful to Shlomo HaMelech who's letting us know this in advance. Because a lot of people may think, you know, this is worthwhile for me. This is a good thing. And Shlomo HaMelech warns us, it's re'ut ruach, it's going to lead you to tremendous amount of aggravations. You know, some people, when they're driving on the street, I'll give you an example. It's their right of way. It's their right of way. But they see a guy coming the other way who's not stopping. No, it's my right of way. I don't care if he's not stopping. They're crazy. So what if it's your right of way? You want to get into an accident? No, it's my right of way. I insist on that. But he's not stopping. Don't be so foolish. Stop. And don't get into an accident. You know, people insist on all kinds of things in life. It's my money. Or it's this, and it's coming to me. Yeah, you know what's going to happen if you insist on certain things and you demand certain things? You're going to break up the family. You're going to ruin your reputation. You're going to lose your job. Who knows, depending on what the problems are. Is it still worth it? People don't think about it. No, it's coming to me. He is wrong. And I'm going to teach him a lesson. And I'm going to prove it. and I'm going to show him, and I'm going to get back to him. Oh, he's not going to get away with it. And I'm going to sue him. Yeah, what's going to happen when you're going to sue him? You know who's going to celebrate? All the lawyers. All the lawyers between the husband and wife, they're going to take away all their money that they saved. The house is going to be sold to cover the money of the attorneys. The kids are going to be left with no money. Oh, aggravations, loss of money, fights for nothing. Who celebrates? The attorneys, that's all. Only the attorneys. People don't think about that. Do you think they think about it before they start? They don't realize that it's going to be $500 an hour. They don't realize a lot of things.
Some of them takes 1,000 an hour.
Yeah. All of this. You see how much aggravation there is in life from all these silly things. So that is why Shlomo Melech is going to put an emphasis of B'ezrat Hashem we will see in the following months on the ta'avot of olam hazeh, on all the desires of this world. The desires are things that dissipate, the things that don't last, things that are not that important, and people put too much emphasis on it, on their body, physical desires. And Shlomo Melech is going to tell us that even though you may think that this is good because this you see now, olam haba you don't see. So some people might be tempted, I want to enjoy what I see now. Olam haba that I'm being promised, I don't see. You know, as they say, you know, the Yetzer Hara pays in cash, and the Yetzer Hara Tov pays you with a post-dated check. The post-dated check is olam haba. It's post-dated. Yetzer Hara is paying you with cash. So people might be tempted, you know, you're telling me these stories about olam haba, the world to come. I want to enjoy life. You only live once, they say. You know, people have that philosophy. So he's going to remind us, remember, all of these tavot that you think you're going to enjoy now, they're going to end anyway. That's not the most important thing in life. Even though you're right, you're allowed to have some of it, but that's not the ikar. I'll give you an example in Mishlei about making money. Some people want to make a lot of money. So Shlomo Melech tells us like this. Listen, young man, al tiga le'ashir. Don't overwork yourself to become rich. Min binatcha hadal. Don't rely on your intelligence. That's going to, I'm going to buy this, going to sell this, going to buy this stock. Don't put too much work into that. You know why? I'll tell you. Hata'if einecha bo, you barely looked at the money you just made. Ve'eneno, it will be gone just as quick. Ki aso yaselo knafaim, the money will have wings. Kenesher, like an eagle. Va'of hashamayim, and it will fly away. In other words, money sometimes develops wings. Right? And boom, it came, made a lot of money, it's gone. And people don't realize it can be gone in so many ways. It can be gone through the wrong investment, by giving it to the wrong people, right? By all kinds of ways. You just had it. It's gone. All sorts of ways to be gone. People tricked you into something. You bought something and then that went sour. All of it, but you just got it. You just made it. Chaval. Wouldn't it have been better not to make it? Why have this extra aggravation? So Shlomo Melech says when it comes to money, I'm letting you know right now, money is going to come easily sometimes and it's going to go away so easily as well. So therefore, don't overwork yourself when it comes to issues of money. Money, that's not something to fight about. That's not an ikar. It's so tafil. It's just a means. It's not the goal. It's a means to survive. So just to summarize, what he has told us so far, briefly, is that life is short, and in the shortness of our life, and in the limited vision that we have, we cannot possibly see and know everything. And because of that, we may lose out a lot. We may lose out a lot in life. Because if a person throughout his life does not know to distinguish between ha'ikar ve'atafil, between what is important and what is not important, what is good and what is bad, or what is right and what is wrong, he's going to be making terrible mistakes. And next week, B'ezrat Hashem, we'll be talking about these mistakes. Some mistakes are very difficult to repair. And those are the ones that are the saddest. Very difficult to... I'll give you a quick example. Let's say somebody at 55, Baruch Hashem, Baal Teshuvah Gamur. He's a Baal Teshuvah. We're all proud of him. We're happy for him. And he's so excited about the next 20, 30 years of his life. What did he lose by doing Teshuvah at 55? Anybody know? Let's not talk about the mitzvot that he could have done till down. Okay, Hashem will forgive him. Do you know that if he raised children for the past 25 years, those children were raised not necessarily in the right way? He can't bring them back so easily. He brought himself back. Do you think he can bring them back? Not necessarily. That's all gone. No guarantee that they will ever do teshuvah. Hopefully they will. Okay, you saved yourself. That's better than nothing. But you realize how important it is, how we raise the children? Because even though later on you correct yourself, you can't necessarily correct them. They're independent. So we're going to learn about that next week, how certain things, we better catch them on time. Otherwise, Shlomo Melech says, we have a lot to lose. And therefore, it's better to know as much as possible before in order to avoid these mistakes. In the end, Kohelet is going to teach us that life is all about success and failure. Some people succeed and some people fail. And success is not measured in money. Success is not measured with money. Money does not determine if somebody succeeded or not. Success will be determined if somebody has a good name, good reputation. Success will be determined by the type of family and marriage he has had. Right? Success will be determined by those things. That's something that we will learn in Kohelet. And that is the importance, of course, of Veshinantam levanecha v'dibartam bam, that Am Yisrael says in the Kriyat Shema, the great importance of a father, a parent, transmitting to the next generation, to his children, Torah, Veshinantam levanecha, to teach Torah, which includes priorities, which includes direction, which includes the tradition, which includes the importance of the Torah, values. Shinantam levanecha is not just how to read Aleph Bet. Shinantam levanecha, to teach, right, is an important responsibility in a parent to give over to his children the most he can, because they're going to be individual human beings. Where are they going to learn from? Hopefully they'll learn something in schools. We have good schools today, Jewish schools, but a lot of parents send them to public schools. What a big disfavor to the kids. You expect the kids to figure it out on their own after they become adults if you did not give them the foundation? You're making it so much more difficult for them. Why? Because you wanted to save a few dollars and sent them to a public school? What a chaval, what a big mistake. These are the kinds of things we'll talk about with Hashem next week. They're very difficult to repair. Things that were done wrong. Oh, I'm going to send them to Jewish Hebrew school on Sundays. Don't come later to complain. No, he's in love with a Korean girl. What am I going to do now, Rabbi? This happens to me every week. I get these phone calls. Almost every week. What do I do now? My first question is, did he send him to a Jewish school? What do you think is the answer? Oh, no, Rabbi, I sent him to a public school. What do you want? That's what he saw there. And it's only hormones. We're talking about hormones. He's in love. He falls, he likes. She's cute. So what are you going to... And he doesn't see the difference. Remember we talk about the difference between right and wrong? What's the difference between a Jew and a non-Jew? Nobody ever told him. How should he know the difference? So that is key over here. The key to succeed in life is to know, to distinguish between what is a priority, what is important, what is not, what should we spend our time in, what should we value, what should we not. And B'ezrat Hashem, by knowing to distinguish, that will determine our success, B'ezrat Hashem. Okay.
Beautiful. So keep the refrigerator around 40.
Yeah.